Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into India. But we're not starting with a simple answer. We're starting with a question. A big one. It's a question that really challenges you to look past the usual headlines and get a handle on the true identity of one of the world's most complex and dynamic nations.
So, here it is. What is India? I mean, on the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward, right? But the source material we're breaking down today argues that the answer is anything but. We're not just talking about a place on a map here. This is an invitation to really dig in and unpack an identity that is incredibly complex and, well, constantly evolving.
Okay, so to even start tackling that massive question, we've got to look at all the different pieces of the puzzle. What are the core components that actually make up the modern idea of India? The article we're looking at paints this picture of India as a giant mosaic. It's not just one thing. It's 1.4 billion different people. It's a collection of states that can feel like different countries. And at the same time, it's this absolute powerhouse on the global stage, in everything from affordable healthcare to being the world's IT help desk. It's all of that, happening all at once.
And let's just pause on this number for a second, because it's the engine behind everything. 1.4 billion. I mean, that's a scale that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. But that sheer number, that's the foundation for its power as this huge market, this incredible pool of talent, and, a major cultural force around the globe.
But that massive human force isn't just contained within India's borders. Oh no. The article then shifts its focus to the 35 million-strong Indian diaspora, and it turns out they played this surprisingly huge role in the country's story.
And what's really fascinating is how the article points out this kind of two-sided contribution. On one side, you've got the really practical stuff, salaries sent back home, which directly supports families and boosts local economies. But on the other side, there's something you can't really put a price on, but it's just as powerful. They're out there building the India brand worldwide, just by being successful in their field.
And that leads to this really key insight. The diaspora isn't just, India abroad. They are a vital connection. The author uses this fantastic phrase calling them a living bridge. And that just perfectly sums it up, right? It's this constant two-way street for ideas, for culture, for money, flowing between their home country and the rest of the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the bridge to the outside world. But what about the bridges inside India? With all that diversity, you have to ask, what are the threads that actually hold the nation together? And the article gets into some really interesting points here.
The author throws this question out there, and it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? In a country with literally hundreds of languages and completely different traditions from one state to the next, could something like a hit song or a blockbuster movie actually work as a common language? Does that shared pop culture help create a feeling of being one nation?
And this whole idea of internal connection goes even deeper, right into language. The article points out this kind of paradox that's pretty wild when you think about it. There's this massive push to learn, say, German or French to get a job overseas, but the article asks, what if? What if that same effort was put into learning the language of the state right next door? Could that build stronger bonds inside the country? So you see how all of this internal stuff, the massive population, the incredible diversity, these questions about what unites everyone, it doesn't just stay inside India's borders. It all feeds directly into how the country acts on the world stage. It shapes its biggest ambitions, but also its biggest challenges.
The way the article frames it, India hasn't arrived anywhere yet. It's very much a nation in the middle of an evolution. The big goal is to become a fully developed nation, but, and this is a huge but, that whole process depends on one thing: a peaceful, stable environment. Without that, it's a much harder journey.
And here's where it gets really interesting. That stability, it's not just about what's happening within India. The article drops this bombshell of a question. Will the other big global powers even let this evolution continue? It kind of suggests India's path isn't entirely its own to control, which, adds this whole layer of geopolitical tension to the story.
So, after exploring identity, the diaspora, and global politics, what's the practical takeaway? If you're running a global organization, how on earth do you navigate this incredibly complex picture?
Well, the message here is pretty simple. India is an opportunity you just can't afford to ignore. Yeah, it's complex, it's a tough nut to crack, but the article argues it's absolutely worth the investment, not just as a market, but as a strategic necessity and a hub for some of the best R&D talent in the world.
And for anyone sitting there wondering, okay, but where do I even start? The author provides a clear, actionable roadmap.
You can recruit top-tier talent from the best business schools, you can partner with leading universities, or you can get expert help to navigate the complexities. The point is, there are concrete pathways to get engaged.
And so we end right where we began, with a question. But this time, it's a challenge. It reframes India's complexity not as a barrier, but as the very source of its opportunity. The puzzle isn't something to be afraid of, it's the pattern you need to understand to unlock your next major global move. So, what do you see?